And we're live. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Talking SaaSy show with Interact. Really excited about today's guest. Today, we're going to be talking with Gary Amaral, who's joining us from not yet snowy Canada, perhaps snowy in some places.
Not yet snowy, Joshua. Not yet snowy.
Not yet snowy Canada. Although a big cup of hot tea looks really nice this morning.
Yeah, it's a nice London fog. I'm getting over some kind of bug, and it's comforting.
That's not what you told me before. You told me you were out last night on a bender with whiskey and cigars.
I wish that was true. Maybe 10 years ago that would be true, but not anymore.
Well, great to have you, Gary. So, Gary, welcome. And before we dive in, could you share a little bit about your journey from traditional marketing roles over at notorious companies like BlackBerry and more popular ones like Hootsuite to now becoming a co-founder?
Yeah, it's been an interesting kind of meandering journey. Before I got into marketing, I actually spent several years in mortgage-backed securities, financial services, and decided my soul was dying a little bit every day, and made the shift to marketing. Went back to the post-grad. Anyways, had a little bit of a stint in telcos, ended up at BlackBerry, which was an amazing experience. It has been really the foundational learning experience that's enabled me to have the career that I've had to date. I was there about 6 years. I worked on every part of the business, parts of the business that most people even today don't know exist. And rode that roller coaster, right? Category creator, market leader to not that. After 6 years in a big, fast-moving tech company, I thought, hey, let's share some of that knowledge with a bunch of people. So I did some consulting, which was enjoyable, but it really meant a lot of time, like me alone with my laptop. And I miss being part of a team. I miss building teams. So that led me to Canadian Tire, one of Canada's oldest and largest retailers, taking our much beloved Canadian Tire Money loyalty program. I don't know, Josh, if you remember collecting all of those funny little pieces of paper as a child to try to buy your first pair of skates or buy your first hockey stick or whatever.
Oh yeah, I had those catalogs.
But that was a big part of being Canadian. I was collecting those Canadian Tire dollars, and I helped take that from a paper-based program to a digital program, and that was a fun project. But I missed tech. The pace of retail is very different than the pace of SaaS or technology companies, and that led me to Hootsuite, which again, category creator, category leader in the social media management space.
Great swag too. I got tons of. I got T-shirts. I got sticker because we had local Hootsuite meetups.
Yeah,
you guys had a fantastic local partnership program. So you go to these meetups and they give out stickers and coffee cups and all kinds of great stuff.
Oh yeah. So my wardrobe mostly consists of either corporate swag of all the places that I've worked for or worked with, or like swim gear. My daughter's a competitive swimmer. I'm wearing one of her team shirts right now.
Nice.
Yeah, so that's my very unsophisticated wardrobe is tech swag and team t-shirts. But yeah, so 2 great years. Lived on the West Coast. Built what was called the Demand Center. The interesting challenge at Hootsuite was, a legacy self-serve business focused on kind of prosumer SMB, but are obviously lots of applications in larger organizations. So there was an enterprise offering and an enterprise motion. There wasn't really anything in the middle for the kind of mid-market. So I helped bridge that self-serve, SMB into the mid-market, into enterprise, extending the flywheel motion from the application all the way into assisted motions, which was amazing journey, amazing outcomes. That led me to Texas, I spent 2 years in Texas working at a company called Chargeify, subscription billing.
Oh, you worked
Also,
at Chargeify. I didn't know that, Gary. That's
yeah,
pretty
yeah.
cool. Yeah.
Chargeify, now everybody knows them as Maxio now, I believe.
Yeah. Nice. So building some EV infrastructure.
Yeah,
Must
so
be
when I joined, it was 50. There was 50 employees. When I left, there was
Mhm.
over 100. So helping them through that growth curve. Shortly after I left, there was some M&A activity that led to them becoming Maxio. So that was a super interesting part of my journey. But the most interesting thing that happened while I was at Chargeify was I ran into Armando Biondi at SaaStock in Dublin. So Armando was co-founder and I believe COO of Adespresso, which was at one point had the largest the largest amount of ad dollars under management for Facebook. It was like an ad experimentation and optimization platform, and Hootsuite bought them. So they exited to Hootsuite. I got to know Armando and his co-founder Massimo at Hootsuite while we were bringing that into the fold. Great guys, but you kind of leave businesses, you go your own ways, you get busy. We reconnected in Dublin, of all places, kind of serendipitously. I invited him to Texas to participate in this video series that I was doing. I had really smart people get on a raft and float down the river in the heart of San Antonio while we filmed them and asked them interesting questions about their jobs and their careers, and tried to somehow connect it to beer, because we always brought a craft beer on the boat trip.
Got it. So it was like hot wings, but on a boat.
Yeah, it was called, what was it called? Billing and Brews, I think.
Billing and Brews. What? That's great, Billing and Brews. What's that hot wing show? Hot Ones.
Hot Ones, yeah. Similar kind of idea as Hot Ones. Yeah. Less painful, more enjoyable. And anyways, we reconnected vis-a-vis that kind of serendipitous moment. And he somehow convinced me that being an entrepreneur is a good idea, that being a SaaS startup founder is fun. And so we did. We started a company called Breadcrumbs. We've been running it for 4.5 years. And I would certainly say fun is part of the experience. I would call it the most challenging 4.5 years of my life. Also very rewarding 4.5 years of my life.
I think any founder watching this is going to relate to what you just said. Fun, but gauntlet.
Oh, 100%. That's a great term, actually. This is publicly known now. We actually sold Breadcrumbs.
Congratulations. It's a recent acquisition, isn't it?
Recent acquisition. Matt Kudu is now the proud owner of Breadcrumbs. And so that deal closed several weeks ago now. We're obviously helping with the transition, customer transition, and all the stuff that goes along post acquisition. So that's kind of what I'm doing now, while thinking about some of the stuff that I'm going to do once that's all wrapped up.
I'm going to adjust our view here, see if it's a little. Whoa! All right, now we're getting serious.
Now everybody can see every pore. Hey, how's it going?
All right. So when we were introduced, Gary, you were introduced to me as one of the smartest and savviest marketers that you will ever meet. And I have to say that's been true in each of our conversations over the last several months. I have gained a great deal of knowledge, wisdom, and insight from our conversations on a range of topics. And most recently, we've been talking a little bit about everyone's favorite fad, AI. Yeah. So that's what I wanted to kind of zero in on today. I've been so this week in Lisbon, 70,000 people, including the Prime Minister of Portugal and the tech minister in Germany, are in Web Summit, and basically everyone is just talking about AI the entire time. So let's break this down. So let's kick it off. Like, what makes your hair stand on end when you hear people talking about AI?
I think it's kind of all the things that go along with most hype cycles. And don't get me wrong, like I don't think AI broadly is a hype cycle. I think it's a fundamental shift in our world, and it's going to have meaningful and lasting implications. And we don't fully understand what those will be yet. Also, because we fully don't understand AI broadly. Of course, there's like tons of experts that have deep expertise, but people that are talking about AI for the most part are talking about it at a very surface level. So that being said, all of the doomsday stuff, AI is coming for our jobs. Nobody's gonna be able to work anymore, or the kind of the positive take on that, which is like AI is going to be able to take off, going to be able to do all of these painful things that nobody ever wants to do, and it's kind of a miracle silver bullet. Those two extremes, I think, is what makes my hair stand on end. I see AI as a massive opportunity for value creation. And I think it's potentially going to be a boon economically for a period of time. With the AI we have today, right? Once we get to super AI, if that becomes a reality, when it becomes a reality, I think that's a different conversation. But with the weak AI that we have today, I think it's actually a job creator.
Interesting. I was listening to this podcast. I forgot which one. Forgive me. But it was interviewing a computer scientist, and she said, "You know what? When a computer beat the world champion chess player back in the 80s, I think it was the 80s or late. What was that? Late 70s, early 80s.
I think it was the 80s. Yeah.
Everyone called that AI. Everyone thought that would take over the world. Now that's a little forgotten chess program on every single device that we have these days. So they use the word AI back then. And really what we're talking about when we say AI now is just you have a statistically powered language model. It's not thinking. It's not. It doesn't have morality. It doesn't have moral worth, so to speak. It's a tool. And what it sounds like you're saying is, these tools, these LLMs, if we get down to it, don't replace human activity. They enhance that. So I'm wondering if you could maybe, in your experience, talk about where AI has proven valuable as an additive tool rather than this scary replacement of a human.
Yeah, let me share some examples of where I've seen people use AI. And the output is not only unhelpful, it's kind of silly, right? So let's say you're doing some market research, market sizing in the US, right? And you're going to put on a geographical layer, right? So you're going to break things up by geos. What 4 states do you think will, in almost every industry, bubble up to the top as meaningful?
Like states of mind?
No, like United States. Like which of the 50 United States, if you're trying to do some, market sizing, I don't care what industry, pick any industry.
It's going to be, you have the second largest economy in the world, which is California, something like that. Right.
Yeah, it's going to be California, New York, Texas, Florida. You know why? Because there's a shit ton of people there, right? Yeah. And people are asking AI to help them with some of these exercises. And every time they ask the question for all of these different variants, they get the same answer. And it's because it's obvious, right? Where there's a lot of people, there's a lot of industry. And that's just how it works.
Yeah.
So to your earlier point, artificial intelligence, in some cases, the intelligence part is a misnomer, right? And I'm gonna put in one of my little like hot topic lines right now. I think most businesses are too concerned with artificial intelligence and not concerned enough with real intelligence in their businesses.
That's quote. Put that in a quote.
That is a quote. And the reality is because I think people with real intelligence are going to be able to understand how to stitch together these different AI-powered solutions. And you're right, most of it is just LLMs, right? Large language models. How they're going to be able to stitch these things together to create more efficient workflows, internal processes. They're going to figure out how to support the large, data set with proprietary data or additional information relevant to the business or the strategy or the tactic that they're trying to achieve, to make the output of these tools more meaningful, more bespoke. And that will allow for people to be more efficient, focus on work of higher value. But the only way that's going to happen is with smart people figuring out how to connect the dots of all this AI tech.
Can you give me any specific examples of this enhancement that AI is going to do? So in other words, what I hear you say is AI is going to kind of take the busy work or undesirable types of exercises off of our plates so that we can think deeper, more strategically, so that we can have more impact, more efficiency, more innovation. AI is going to kind of prop that up. Do you have any real world examples of where this may have already happened?
Yeah, I think one of the places where it's happening a lot already is to do with content creation, right? Content is king still. Whether that remains true over the next few years, we will see with all of the changes in how search is going to work. Right, generative search is around the corner. You're already seeing Gemini pop up. So how is SEO going to be impacted? TBD. But using AI to facilitate the ideation process, collection of supporting data points, right? Like a bunch of these GPTs are just really good search engine crawlers that can spit out information in context, right? So helping you generate the idea, helping you generate the supporting information for a solid piece of content, and then empowering a writer to use those building blocks to write really high quality, unique content where all the grunt work was taken out of it, right? They didn't have to scour the web for the references. They didn't have to spend 20 minutes looking at search query data and data rooms, right? They could skip all of that stuff, right? The GPT was able to tell you, hey, people are looking for this on the web. Here's a bunch of stuff that supports these types of topics. Go ahead and write something interesting.
Yeah, and I actually experienced this just the other day. I was writing an article about generative search and how it's changing what we do as an agency. For the last 10 years, we wrote a blog post a week and cap it off with an ebook at the end of the quarter.
Sure.
Great. It's not working that well anymore. Why? And I was thinking about this. Like, we are in the entire year, our SEO has maybe gotten us 1 or 2 leads. In just last quarter, we had 2 leads coming from generative search. And so it got me thinking about this. And I heard this on a podcast or Reddit post somewhere, but it said ChatGPT has become the second most popular
search
website. However, so I was like, okay, that's interesting. Let me fact check that. So of course I go to Perplexity and I say, is it true that ChatGPT is the second most visited website? And it's not true. It's not factual. So It's up there. Like I think it's 85th in the world or something, and it's
Yeah.
up 5 points every week or so.
Yeah.
It will eventually become, but it is dwarfed by Wikipedia. Everything is dwarfed by Wikipedia by a lot. So here's a kind of like a meta experience where I'm writing about generative AI, debunking myths about it, using generative AI to actually do
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. No, I think that content use case is I think an excellent one. I think things that we used to think of in other terms. Do you remember the term IVR?
Is that for like the call routing? Was that the
Yeah,
call routing?
exactly. So when you call a place and you get this like fake voice, or you get this like press 1 to do this, press 3 to do that. AI is gonna revolutionize IVRs, right? Like there's no longer gonna be listened to this like endless, and we've already experiencing this with some companies, some larger companies that are ahead of the curve. But you're just gonna be able to tell the robot, hey, this is what I need, and the robot's gonna know where to send you, right? However, this is not what people are thinking about. I think the layman, when they think about AI, again, I think they're thinking about like a general AI, like an AI that you can talk to about anything, and it can answer you about anything, and it can create new ideas, and it can take actions. That doesn't exist. Where you're experiencing something that feels like that, there's a team of engineers and there's a team of people working behind the scenes to connect a bunch of different technologies to give you that feeling. And sorry, go ahead.
Well, there was this open source project. What was it called? It was a bunny something or rabbit something, which would do that. It's a little box, a device, and you connect all your e-commerce and house stuff. And you would talk to it, and it's supposed to just run your life. And it got a lot of criticism because it didn't do what it was supposed to do.
Sure.
But it's V1, right? Like,
right.
Like how in Star Trek he talks to the computer. I think that's what it was trying to accomplish.
Well, and I think that is the future. Like, I think Gene Roddenberry might have been more of a fortune teller than we give him credit for, right?
Yeah.
I think we will figure out general AI. I think like super intelligent AI will exist. There's a bunch of existential questions that come with that. I do not think that's coming tomorrow, right? I reference this quote often. I forget who it actually comes from, but in general, I think people massively overestimate what's going to happen in the next 6 months and massively underestimate what's going to happen in the next 10 years, right? So over the next 6 months, a year, will there be changes? Yes. Are they going to be earth-shattering, life-changing changes where massive percentages of workforces get displaced? No. Over the course of 10 years, over the course of 20 years, 100%. Go ahead.
Well, let's break this down. Let's take this back down to the world of sales and marketing, and particularly, as HubSpot partners, and we're talking with HubSpot almost every week.
Yeah.
The talking point there is we have 80. HubSpot now has 80 AI agents throughout their ecosystem, and I see more every day. Last week I popped in and there was a lead scoring AI lead scoring generator. Popped in the week before that and there was a prompt for generating a report. So there's probably more than 80 at this point. They keep dropping them every week. And the idea there, of course, is to transform our sales and marketing workflows. How else are you seeing AI transform how sales and marketing teams are working?
I think it's exacerbating certain bad behaviors. I think
such as?
Well, here's the perfect example. So like, we had this like sales engagement platform proliferation, right? The outreaches, the Apollos, I don't know, there's a million of them, right?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, and the idea of like a rep or an SDR really became like building out a bunch of these automated cadences, letting them run, and like hopefully somebody raises their hand, and and then they engage with that person like reactively, right? Which is weird because it's just a shift from like what marketing used to do, pushing it into the sales organization, right?
Yeah.
Super interesting that ever became a thing. And now with like a bunch of AI, those people aren't even thinking about the cadences that they're writing, right? They're just letting AI generate them. They're not even really thinking about the targeting that's going into it. And literally they're just like they're just waiting to take an order, right? They're hoping that this and the sad reality is it's not working for 98% of businesses.
Yeah.
Right. So I see AI impacting sales and marketing in the sense that it's making some things easier to do, but it doesn't mean that those are the right things to do. And in fact, questioning what our motion should look like, how we should do things, that level of critical thought is decreasing in businesses. Where I am seeing it be very helpful is higher up in the organization, kind of at the management level, strategic level, where there are some really strong AI layers being applied onto like BI tools.
Yes.
And you have more data savvy leadership engaging with their business information more directly, and being able to interact in a plain English kind of way, and actually getting meaningful information back.
We were talking with a company in Canada, actually based out of Montreal, called Maxa AI, and they are a layer on Snowflake where it's not even software; it's the idea of software, right?
Right.
And it just looks at your data, looks at what you want to know, and actually builds itself.
Wow.
It creates itself, and then that's your BI. Your BI is completely personalized based on your actual data. Really, very interesting. Technology.
Yeah. And listen, and once this stuff starts, like, I think we're there kind of where it can start helping you really understand what you're trying to understand, right? So I use a really simple example when it comes to this business insights, business data stuff. Imagine back in the day, you're an exec, you want to understand what is your most profitable customer. Okay. And you put that into, the data pipeline, and some analyst gets that query and they have to like build the report to support that.
Yeah.
That question can be answered a million ways, right? And unless that analyst goes back and asks for clarification or is proactive in presenting all of the different cuts by which you can answer that question, the exec is likely getting the wrong answer, right? And I think AI has the ability to empower business leaders to ask better questions, and to surface. I think the real nugget in terms of the AI we have today is it can identify insights that are non-obvious better than a human can, right? And getting the machine to surface that to the decision maker is going to be a huge element of the benefit of the AI we have in market today. I think Joshua, you've been asking a lot about practically how can you use AI in marketing and sales workflows to make life better, right? And I think ultimately that's actually a bespoke question for each business, right? Depending on like what did they have in place already? What does their tech stack look like today already? You may have really well-built processes. They're not AI, but they're awesome, And AI may not add any incremental value. The opposite may be true as well, right? I think it's it really comes down to breaking down how you do what you do today. Is the output good, great, or bad? Could it be better with AI? Is it worth the lift in terms of the new technology, in terms of the development time, whatever metrics you need to put into that equation? um, and kind of reimagine your workflows with AI components on top, and see if they're additive or not, right?
Mhm.
Can you do better personalization by adding AI content personalization onto your marketing workflows?
Mhm.
Maybe it's not worth it, right? Maybe you have a super simple value proposition, and like super simple, super direct emails convert really, really well. Maybe you have a super complicated product with a ton of different potential buyers,
Yeah.
and then
Yeah.
yes, some kind of AI personalization would probably be helpful.
So what I hear you saying is beware of shiny object syndrome. Just because an AI could do it doesn't mean it should do it. Think about
100%.
it. Think about it from the strategy that you're implementing in your market.
Yeah, 100%. I've heard VPs of marketing. I've been doing a little bit of like advising fractional work, Joshua,
Mhm.
as you exit your startup. And I've heard VPs of marketing with blanket mandates, like don't bring me a product or a solution unless it's AI.
Yeah.
And it's like, what in what world is that a good mandate,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I,
That's
I don't.
interesting. Because you hear the opposite sometimes too. You hear, especially with nonprofit organizations. We have a friend who helps with First Nation grant creation and program running grant programs for First Nation, and an AI would help them consolidate research better and do the reporting and write grants faster and all this stuff.
Yeah.
But her director doesn't. If you start a sentence with AI, it's like you need to leave the office. We're not talking or even thinking about implementing anything. Like that. So there's kind of like these extreme camps where you're afraid of it, or you're a little bit too Kool-Aid, so to speak, for it.
Yeah. Listen, I don't live in the States anymore. But not to make this political, extreme camps don't seem to be good for anything, right? Usually somewhere in the middle of the road is what's
Yeah.
best for most people. And the craziness of the last, I don't know, 12 years of US politics hopefully has shown the majority of Americans that some middle road is better than the extreme on
The
either
middle way.
end.
So you're the Buddha of AI, Gary. You're
That's it,
the
the
middle
middle
way.
way.
Yeah.
And I think it's true in most things, right? Like, I am not an AI naysayer. I don't poo-poo AI. I think AI, as per the beginning of this conversation, it's going to be a fundamental inflection point in society, right? In our evolution. Is it as it exists today? Is it a silver bullet? Is it the grand messiah that's going to solve all of our problems? 100% no. Come to terms with those two realities,
Yeah.
and then you'll quickly adopt the middle way.
So there's a kind of modern philosophy. I believe it's called post-materialism.
Okay.
And what post-materialists assert is that all things, including inanimate objects, have moral worth.
Okay.
Okay. So kind of asserting that, what I take, I don't know if I fully agree with this position, but I think what I take from it is that objects do interact with humans.
Mm-hmm.
Context matters. Who's in or not in a room matters. What a room looks like matters.
Mm-hmm.
The space that you occupy and what occupies that space with you
Mm-hmm.
matter. So that being said, one of the things we spoke about recently was this sense of inequality or power dynamic that happens when a seller appears on a call and they've got their AI note taker. But a buyer doesn't. Let's say I'm a procurement specialist, or I'm just trying to, buy something for my team. I don't have an AI note taker. So now I've got like AI trying to sell me something, right? Which creates this sense of being bullied, perhaps. Could you speak more about how these technologies might be affecting human relationships?
Yeah. So I read that article. This is where we had that conversation, I think, Joshua. And there's a couple of different angles to look at this through. Do I think that technology, AI included, in some cases create power imbalances? Yeah, I do. I think in general, the seller-buyer relationship since the beginning of time comes from a level of there's always been a knowledge gap, right? There's always been a power differential between the person selling the thing and the person buying the thing. It's not always in the same direction, and it's not always in the same direction on every kind of subtopic, right? I don't necessarily think that that's a bad thing as long as everybody's aware and can make the right decisions based on that, right? I also believe that people have agency and they can level the playing field in many of these cases, right? AI note takers are a dime a dozen. They don't cost very much money. Get your own, right? Show up to the sales meeting with your own.
Fair enough.
Right? And what is really, there's like the pragmatic reality, right? Which company has mandated that there is a AI note taker shows up to every meeting. So the rep shows up, there's the AI note taker. The AI note taker spits out like summaries. It allows management to look for keywords and identify trends. And but I've known enough salespeople in my life to bet that 95% of them today don't sell any differently than they did prior to the AI note taker. Right? The human element of this, the adoption curve, the how it impacts human behavior, that is a much slower curve. So I think some of this stuff is academics or people that are, really smart looking to find something to talk about that isn't a real problem yet. Not that it won't be a real problem, right?
Yeah.
But the underlying thing is like, you have agency, regardless of what side of that equation you're on. Use that agency to level the playing field as much as you can, but acknowledge that most of the time in any kind of transaction, there is an imbalance of power.
Yeah. I remember back in the day, this was early 2000, when was it? 2008, 9, perhaps. I was an early adopter for the here's my calendar link.
Sure.
I think there was a piece of software. There was one called Monday that Microsoft purchased and killed. And then there was one called Toggle. I think it was called Toggle. That doesn't exist anymore. One of the first ones.
Yeah. And
I was working at a startup called Janraid in Portland. It used my Toggle link to get people to book with me.
Yeah.
It was considered pretty faux pas to do that. Right? That's back in the day, 15 years ago, 20 years ago. These days, it's expected behavior.
Yeah.
Everyone has their calendar. Like you go Google now, you can get a free one on your Google Calendar.
Yeah. I have multiple ways to generate calendar links, and I don't pay for any of them.
Right. Yeah. So like these perceptions, maybe it was blown out of proportion back then, is normalized 10 years later. So I imagine that kind of thing with AI note taking is probably taking place as well.
Yeah, I think people are afraid of change, right, Joshua? Like, every time there's change, there's those early adopters like you with the calendar link. I'm pretty sure I was one of those people too. And then there's the people that are like, oh my God, the sky is falling, Chicken Little attitude. often irrationally, in my opinion, right? They haven't really taken a time to think about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, the implications are real. I sat on a panel a couple of weeks ago talking about this very topic, and there was a variety of people on the panel, a couple of entrepreneurs, a couple of really hardcore tech people, a marketer from like a larger CPG company, and an academic. And it was amazing how everybody's perspective aligned almost perfectly with their professional background, right? And the academic, God bless his soul, that nice guy, all he wanted was regulation.
Okay.
Right? Like regulation was going to solve all of these problems, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or the future of these problems. And he wanted regulation because all he saw was the downsides. People losing their jobs, people's privacy being infringed upon, like just the all of the Machiavellian stuff that can go along with AI. That's what he saw, right? The marketer from the large company, it was all about risk, right? It was just risk mitigation, including in terms of like AI adoption, and like the benefit of AI potentially being reducing risk, right?
Yeah.
And the entrepreneurs are like, I want to do cool shit faster.
Yeah.
Right? Like that's what the entrepreneurs were talking about. It is largely your worldview on these things or your opinion on these things is largely a function of your broader worldview, right? Which is formed with your socioeconomic background, your educational background, your work experience, right? Your career. The reality is all of these people on the panel, myself included, there are elements of truth. I agree with the academic. People are going to lose their jobs. I think there will be other jobs. I don't think it's a net loss, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's a matter of like bringing those viewpoints, taking time to understand all of the data points, and forming a reasonable conclusion. And I would say for marketers and salespeople, the reasonable conclusion is AI can help you. It's not going to do all your work for you. You really need to think about it and figure out where to make the bets, where to make the investments, and how to use the tool. And if you want to be the best sales leader 10 years from now and the best marketing leader 10 years from now, learn how this stuff works, right? Don't be the person that just buys the tool like early days in SaaS, right? Every SaaS product just miraculously solved a problem. And people would buy stuff and it literally sat on the shelf because nobody in the business took the time to understand how to use it. The implementations all went wrong. It was a disaster, right? Early days of SaaS, disaster. And that could happen here again, right? Let's not make those mistakes again.
So that's 10 years. Let's take the next 2 to 3 years.
Yeah.
And this is the only prediction question I'm going to ask you.
Sure.
So where do you think AI is going to be making the biggest impact for sales and marketing in the next 2 or 3 years?
Where is it going to make the biggest impact?
Yes.
Yeah, I think it's in that process optimization space, right? I think it's in individuals or teams identifying where am I wasting time, and how can AI help me be more efficient and more effective with my efforts, right? There's been like this AI calendar all over social for years now. I forget what it's called. And it makes this claim that like, it can efficiently allocate your time using AI so you get more stuff done in the same amount of time.
Mm-hmm.
I tried it. I was an early adopter. I felt it failed to meet its promise. It's likely evolved a lot in a year and a half or 2 years since I first tried it. But if that's true, right? If its promise is true, that's the kind of areas where I think AI helps, right? Like my calendar is a dog's breakfast every week, right? There's meetings all over the place, double bookings, overlapping meetings, things change constantly. I was ill for the last couple of days. I basically wiped out entire days of meetings. All of that stuff has to be rebooked. If there's tools that can do that for you efficiently and effectively, that frees you up to work on stuff that's much more meaningful, right?
So process optimization.
It's process optimization.
Back-end tasks.
Yeah, back-end tasks, low value tasks, freeing up the individuals to focus on creative work, focus on analytical work, focus on strategic work, and less on tactical work.
Let me play a little bit of devil's advocate and point out that since Clay and these SDR automation tools entered the market, the number of annoying, spammy, cold outreach emails has quadrupled.
Sure.
Makes our job as boutique agency a lot harder because there's a lot more noise. It's harder to get noticed. Basically, marketing people have ruined email, cold email.
Sure.
Thanks to AI.
Yeah.
What do you have to say to that?
I think cold email was broken before AI, and I think it's just gotten worse. I'm helping a couple of companies right now stand up cold outbound programs for them. The value comes from identifying the white space, finding a way to create signal in the noise. AI can't do that. I can do that, right? Somebody smart who's really thinking about you, your business, your target customer, your messaging, what does all the junk look like in the market? How can we behave differently? AI can't do that yet. I can, and some other people can. And a bunch of these cold outbound programs that we've stood up for companies are actually providing really good results, right? But it's because I'm spending a lot of time thinking about the strategic elements of it, instead of spending a lot of time on writing 60 variants of spin tags to trick the ESPs so that my inbox, my emails end up in the inbox, right? I'm letting the AI do that work because that work is low value. I'm thinking of the framework that applies to the campaign and all of the different ways to disrupt. It's really about disrupting your prospect's day, right? How do I disrupt my prospect's day in order to get a little bit of their attention and do it in a way that makes them want to talk to me more? I spend my time thinking about that, building out that framework, and I let the machine do all the nonsense, right? The problem is most people are lazy, right? And so they just take the existing frameworks, the existing shit that we used to do manually, and they're just replicating it at scale, 10 times the quantity, and they're getting the same shitty results that they were getting before, right? So it's never about cold is dead. I've been hearing stuff like this my whole life. Email in general is dead. Email marketing is dead. Cold outbound is dead. All of these channels are dead. No, they're not dead. It's just most people do a really shitty job of using them. And if you spend your time and energy thinking, how do I use these channels more effectively? How do I disambiguate what I'm doing compared to what 99% of the market is doing? You're going to have better results. And it's also about being realistic, right? It's always been a numbers game. right? Like, a 3% response rate on a outbound campaign, a cold outbound campaign, that's great, right?
Mhm.
The reality is most people get less than 1%.
Mhm.
Right? If I'm getting 3% or higher, I know I'm doing something different.
So
Does
TLDR,
that make sense?
be smarter.
Be smarter. Going back to my quote, right? Stop worrying so much about artificial intelligence. Worry more about real intelligence. You have really intelligent people in your business trying to solve problems,
Yeah.
right? And stop worrying about whether you call them opportunities or problems. Are they just trying to solve for stuff,
Yeah.
right? Like, I don't care if you call it a problem. I don't care if you call it an opportunity. Is it going to move a business metric forward? Are they thinking about it? Are they doing stuff? Are they experimenting? Are they adding value? Or are
Yeah.
they just taking orders and going to ChatGPT and creating another marketing, cadence and popping it into the map and checking a box? I would say most of the time it's that and not the
Yeah.
other.
Yeah. It's like hiring a hammer and a saw instead
Okay.
of an experienced tradesman.
Yeah, oh for sure. I have
Right?
a bunch of friends. I have a bunch of friends that are carpenters, and they always tell the same stories, right?
Yeah.
And they'll go and they'll build a deck in somebody's backyard, and they'll have the deck built in half a day, and it's whatever, a couple $1,000. And the homeowner will be like, you were here for 4 hours. Why am I paying you so much money?
Yeah.
And the answer is, you're not paying me for the 4 hours that I was here. You're
Yeah.
paying me for the 20 years that it took me to be able to build this deck in 4 hours.
Yeah.
Like, you got a deck. What is the deck worth to you? My time is irrelevant, right? The fact that I'm really good at what I'm doing doesn't impact the value of what I provided you,
Yeah.
right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, it's that time in our conversation for some rapid fire questions. Are you ready?
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'll try my best.
All right. So, what is your favorite guilty pleasure, Gary?
Late night sweets or trashy TV. Sometimes both at the same time.
So, what's the TV show and what's the candy?
This is super embarrassing. Lately, it's been Love is Blind,
Okay.
which is like don't judge me too harshly. I look at it from like a sociological and anthropological perspective. It amazes me how people 10, 20 years my junior engage with each other, the things that they care about, the things that they talk about. That stuff fascinates me. The drama helps make it entertaining. And the snack would be like like a Cadbury caramel chocolate bar, which is I think a very Canadian thing. I don't think they exist in the States.
Okay. What are you reading right now, and would you recommend it?
I'll show you what I'm reading right now. Triumphs of Experience. Can you see that?
Triumphs of Experience. The Men of
Yeah.
Harvard Grant Study.
Yeah. So it's basically a human development study. It's looking at how people look at the world, and like it's a longitudinal study, how people look at the world and evolve into your later years. I'm really super interested in how society is changing.
Mm-hmm.
I'm super interested in how people, the perceptions of value of people have changed, right?
Mm-hmm.
The notion that like age brought wisdom, that used to be just a commonly accepted truism.
Mm-hmm.
Not so much anymore, really. Why are those things changing? And like how is my aging impacting how I look at the world and how I behave? So I'm not very far in, 47 pages, but super interesting so far.
Cool. Thank you. If you weren't doing this job, What's the most unusual job you would be doing right now?
Interesting. So you've seen me sitting on my lounger. Sometimes I take calls from my lounger, and you saw the knife that kind of pokes into my head when I'm sitting there. I think probably something in hospitality, food. I love food. It's something that runs in my family. My brother was a trained chef. I have 4 cousins who are trained chefs. A bunch of others that work as banquet directors and bar managers. And for some reason, hospitality is a thing in my family. So probably that. Or I spent a couple of years as a part-time private investigator in my.
That's unusual.
Yeah.
Did you like it?
I loved it. It was super interesting. I have some great stories from it. It was different and dynamic. My father-in-law actually owned a private investigating agency, and that's how I got into it. Got licensed and all this stuff. So I might be doing that.
Cool.
Yeah.
What's one fashion trend you're glad has come back or hope never does?
One fashion trend I'm glad it's come back or hope never does. I don't know. I don't know if this is a direct answer, but I don't know if you've noticed kids under a certain age, like 28 and under, wear socks with their sandals. And
I used to live in Portland. Everybody wears socks with their Birkenstocks.
Okay, but back in the day when I was younger, socks with the sandals was like a verboten thing. Like you didn't do socks and sandals. Yeah. And now, if you're wearing sandals and you're not wearing socks, you're old. You're out of touch. And I don't care either way. I just don't understand the pendulum swing. I'm gonna wear my sandals however I want. You wear your sandals however you want.
I think people should wear their socks over their sandals.
Socks over their sandals. Well, there you go.
Gary, you're now offering fractional CMO services, among some other things. Would you tell us how someone might be able to find out more about you and what you do?
Yeah, so kind of a sneak peek. I'm working on a concept called Demand Swell. There's a little splash page up. You can check it out at demandswell.com. I'm bringing together some go-to-market professionals that I worked with over the years that have tons of experience in operations, marketing, demand gen, and sales. And a network of partners, freelancers and agency partners to help businesses go beyond getting advice to actually execute it. So as you've mentioned, I've been doing a little bit of fractional, a little bit of advisory stuff. And this fractional thing seems to be growing as a trend. Unfortunately, most of the time, there's a lot of talk and very little action. And Demand Swell is intended to support the talk with action. If your team internally or your network of providers can't execute on the things that we've decided together will move your business forward, we will help you with our team. So that's demandswell.com. You can reach out to me directly, Gary at demandswell.com. You can find me on LinkedIn. Happy to talk to anybody about it. But some super interesting folks involved, including Joshua.
Yes, hopefully you'll consider us for some of that. And I promise, Gary, the next time we talk, we do not have to talk about AI. Anything you want.
Sounds good, my friend.
Well, I enjoyed the hour spent with you, Gary, very much. Thank you for your time.
Thanks so much, Joshua. Thanks, everybody, for joining.